So this occasion for what we call formal practice, that's the colloquial expression. It really means cultivating, sort of putting circumstances, really training control system to put circumstantial stuff to one side as much as is possible, which is never complete and shouldn't be complete, but at least filtering it so whatever does occur we can actually grab it, handle it in the particular temple that we've generated in our hearts. So yeah, there'll be the memories, there'll be the physical discomfort, there'll be the, whatever tumbles in. When you've got enough of a frame of reference to begin to digest this, and it's actually great stuff, because that's where you get your learning pieces of, you give attention to details that do come in, because you've filtered out a lot. So it's not a total control. You never can have total control. You shouldn't have total control. It's a fallacy. It's a blindness. So it's not about that, but it's certainly, creating that boundary temple. And so things like the structure, the time, routines, the modalities, the encouragement to silence, all this. Yeah, that's and it's turning up, just being there. And speaking personally, it's certainly not always comfortable. But it doesn't have to be comfortable. We're not here for a sedative, actually. And that sense of the discipline, it doesn't have to be comfortable. It has to be something I can chew on. So those lines, okay, this time, that time, this time, that time. Lines or something is always a bit, just getting to that, and the bell rang, or, God, it's time to go, why don't they ring the bell? Dominated by a bell. Too long or too short. Okay, it's time to experience that. So, because at this time we're not really, we're putting an emphasis on the container in order to witness some, feelings of boredom or lassitude, irritation. This is, so we kind of almost digs out potential for various kinds of hindrances. Subtle and gross. So, my time, and so having 40 or 45, I don't know how many years of practice, but it's getting on quite a way. Naturally, you get used to being in physical discomfort, and eventually you can get so that can be there, but you're not in it. It's just happening around. Your chitta's fortified, so you can, the body's there's some pain there, but literally you're sitting in that. So it's not getting in. You've built enough sati sambhajanya, or whatever it is, samadhi, whatever it is, to be able to, this level of discomfort. It's not torture, but notice it. It's pretty nice. That's it. But now it's time the body's beginning to break down, so that after a while my legs start to jump and twitch, like I'm giving you pain signals, you're not responding. The knee jumps up and down. Hey, get it. It's time to go. Move. That kind of good humbling stuff, you know. Sit there like a rock for 6 hours. No, that's gone. Body just won't allow it. At least at my level of practice. The Buddha himself said, you know, he could only, in his last years, he could only just about keep it going by entering into very, very deep states I have no access to. So the rest of the time it's just bearing with it. You know, and he did. Because he was in their formless attainments when he'd get relief from pain, but a lot of the time he wasn't in them. He was out there teaching, talking, walking, just being there with this uncomfortable body. Ended up, you know, taking his poisoned food and colic, diarrhea, dysentery, you know, miserable way to die. Okay, but then that's the body's doing that, and enough discernment and clarity to, you know, relinquish that. No, I don't think he wasn't feeling it, or it wasn't happening. You know, he knew very clearly. It's fading out now. Here's a tree. It's there. Make these arrangements because I'm about to go. I'm quite clear about that. And humbling, isn't it? You know, the great world-honoured one, ending up his last days lying under a tree in the dirt with diarrhea and dysentery. That's kind of quite a profound image, I think. You always see the Buddha as kind of upright, you know, fully vigorous, bright, shining skin, features, broken down old man, you know, wrinkled skin. And, okay. You know, so it's you need to recognise, well, you know, we will all be in that state. We will all be foggy, maybe, you know, low energy, low vitality. So, time to uproot all the distress, agitation around physical conditions, or the, you know, getting fascinated by one's vigour, strength, clarity, health. You know, not taking it for granted. It's not just you get fascinated by the fact that we just coast along on it, like there's no limit to this. There is a limit to it. And, you know, if you're in good health, it's quite easy to get some really disastrous disease at any age. It's like formal practice, like while you've got the chance, be with the discomfort, be with the frustration, be with the drowsiness, and work with it to, if you can't overcome the physical situation, at least overcome the psychological agitation, frustration and irritation with it. You know, you clear the hindrance. You can't always clear the physical condition or the energetic condition, but can you clear the hindrance? And it all rests upon identification, doesn't it? Not a psychological decision, just a compulsive. Anything that's happening to his body is definitely something you've got to get, you know. Anything happening to his mind, you know. Anything disturbing this citta, you know, one way or another. You think, okay. So we notice one of the kind of obvious features of a lot of these teachings is the impersonality of it. The whole that satipatthana, very little mention of any personal pronoun. It's just one, you know, aware, mind is doing this, aware, mind is doing that, aware of unrestricted mind. And with Pali, you can actually have verbs with no subjects. You know, so you have to, in English, you have to say he. I generally said he, but you look in the Pali, the word he, so isn't there. It just says, you know, there's a third person singular doing something. So that's just the nature of the verb. But there's no There's no distinct, separate subject from it. Maybe, it's maybe you think it's just a literary, rather confusing literary piece of language. But I think it's actually, one can make something quite useful out of that. What it points you to is, this is bodies, this is chittas, this is feeling, these are dhammas. It's necessary to take it outside of the personal frame of reference, into the satipatthana frame of reference, the temple frame of reference. Then phenomena that normally one would avoid, okay, what's happening here? Phenomena that would normally want to have more of, it's time to stop. So that kind of nagging or that pushing at the personal boundaries, which we've normally constructed and held dear and feel it's our right to hold. This is my life, my time, my body, my me, definitely. My rights. It's a big thing in a piece of language that people rise up to, don't they? It's use those terms in contemporary society. It's my right. Right, this is right. Where did this right come from? As you get on that one, it's our right to do what we like to animals, creatures, planet, other humans we don't like. It's our right. This right thing. Who gave you the right? Where did that come from? So this is the source of, this might be mine, it's a source of considerable conflict and stress internally and externally. Internally in terms of what one's experiencing, externally in terms of what one's behaving. Experiencing irritation, one behaves in harsh, irritable ways. Internal citta, external citta. One is feeling kind of bored, and so one acts in careless ways externally, indifferent. You're not paying attention because you're fed up, bored. So that creates debris around you, around us, whenever we get affected in that way. So, although I've made something like this internal, external, you really see how these different scenarios that we, on a normal level of consciousness experience, the dualistic state, and they do feed into each other. And similarly, if you're feeling kind of bored and useless and fed up, externally, okay, let's do some chanting, get the attention, get the Pali right. Actually use that to sharpen. Then you take that, the result of that comes in. Because there really isn't a boundary. So the internal stuff oozes out, either for good or for bad. And similarly, external phenomena internalise. So we get. So it's okay, finding sitting still really difficult. Then maybe I'll just spend some time carefully reviewing the kuti, learning the chanting, studying little pieces that I've got a bit careless or dull about, or I haven't really given attention to. Sharpen up, sharpen up, sharpen up. And that comes internally. And then internally, that experience, and then you, all right, I don't know, many people find joy out of reciting the Patimokkha, for example, because it's steady, it's rhythmic, it requires disciplined attention. Having done that, one feels somehow lifted by it, and that result internally. These are ways one can use these situations and in life. And the challenge, of course, in our here, even in this group retreat, there's quite a lot of time where we're not actually in a particular specified form. Even in this, a fair amount of time anyway. So again, externally, we're sitting in the hall, feeling really difficult, uncomfortable. Open the eyes, see the stillness, still bodies, human beings, Buddha. Pick up the sign, stabilised. Okay, no longer so highly focused on the discomfort in my body or the fogginess or the wooziness in the energies. So, you can do play across that apparent boundary. And this is cultivation. It's really important, in my opinion, to not just get fixated on a technique, because sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't. I've never known anything that works all the time. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it ain't happening. So you've got to learn that overall sampajano. That's appropriate, careful, comprehending awareness. What's suitable? What works? What's the purpose? What's the aim? What's needed? So, certainly, sometimes in the retreats, it's just basically nothing seems to be working, just recognising, well, it's like this now. Stop struggling, fighting, getting annoyed. It's like this. Just holding that. Sometimes things you just weather through, for a day or half a day or a few hours. And it just seems to shift by itself. Not through anything one does, just through not engaging hindrances with it. It begins to move its own right. As I suggested, Chitta is a self-healing system. It will find its way. But the important thing is we always feed it properly, but we don't feed it with hindrances. So it's not let it be. No, you do need to feed it, but the food could be just faith. Could be. Okay. Or being in an appropriate situation. Okay, we're here, 20 of us. Obviously everybody else gets discomfort, confusion, whatever happening in their minds. They're doing it, I'll do it. So we come out of the self package, which tunnels us into obsessions with my particular problems. Who doesn't have them? No, or somehow that also seems to just, all right, yeah. That gives me somewhere to sit, to be, with a sense of dispassion and also compassion. And Chitta can sense that and, does its own thing slowly, begins to come out of whatever it was stuck in. It doesn't happen in a moment. But even that shift from the self-view to right view, something is felt. A little bit of space, some stability, some ground. Okay. Those who have been in the past have gone through this. Those those Sangha who cultivated in the past have been with this. Those in the future will be with this. So why shouldn't it happen to me? Well, it's not right, it shouldn't happen to me. Where's the contract that says that? And that truthfulness. It's not rosy, but it's true. And you rest on that. That lifting thing. Then you bear that. This is the citta affected by passion, distress, confusion. It's like this now. Don't pile more hindrances onto it. And all that begins really with taking it personally. Or well, the two go together. The two bond. Because it's my mind, it shouldn't be. If it's her mind, I just think, oh, that's a shame. Or I might even give her some advice. Oh, just let go. You get one of those people. Oh, just drop it, let go of it. Yeah. Easy to advise other people, isn't it? Well, hey. It doesn't work like that. It's conceit, which is not necessarily the same as, the English word tends to be really puffed up and proud. It just means you want measuring things in terms of a self. Mana, again, the mana mind, the measuring mind. Mana, that's its action. It conceives. It conceives this is mine. It conceives this is his. This conceives this is theirs. It conceives it should be this. It conceives it shouldn't be that. It conceives I was this. It conceives I will be that. It conceives if I'm not this, I can't be that. It conceives because I am this, I can never be that. And it conceives. And it conceives these things. And it conceives she's better, he's better, I'm worse, he's better, I'm better, they're better. And I should. And it conceives all this. It's always avoiding unconsciously. It's like this. We can take it very personally, that's the instinct. But actually, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have it this way. Clearly, I can't say, just stop thinking. Or I can't say, just be happy. Or I can't say, well, just drop it all and let go. Or I can't say, rise up and be inspired. It's not self. It's not under control like that. What one can do is generate the signs and the shifts and support realization. And in a way, what one does in these formal practices, you kind of remove the other props, so more as you have to generate these things. Because nothing, the normal kind of avoidance strategies or comfort zones, it's kind of snipped out. Because you've got to actually generate that which hasn't been generated. And begin to see it can happen. It's surprising, it can happen. When I started meditation practice, I couldn't do an inhalation or an exhalation. I couldn't maintain attention on one exhalation. I just could not do that much. Not 5 minutes, not 10 seconds, but not one exhalation. I thought, I didn't realise it was this bad, because I'd never tried to do it before. And then you sit in a situation and say, watch your breathing, or be mindful of breathing. You think, yeah, well, that should be easy enough. Go on. Where did that go? So it's only the formality of the practice that said, look, see, didn't realise how chaotic your mind is. In 15 minutes, that's all you're going to do. I couldn't do that. Oh, this is serious. I better do something. So then eventually well, pretty quickly, I realised I can't do this where I'm at. I'm all over the place. I better get to a monastery where I can get restrained. I can't do restraint. So it's just not, I'm allergic to it. It makes me feel bad. So, get to the monastery, it did make me feel bad. It's true. But I didn't have much choice. And something says, now's the time you've got to stop doing that. Some gut level wisdom, be uncomfortable, be hot, be confused, be dull, be frustrated, be left alone, be bored. And just keep putting in the resolution, saying it best you can. I think after a week or so I could manage 10 minutes before everything caved in. And then 10 minutes sitting and 10 minute walking. I got to be in a whole hour doing that, feeling quite reasonable. Well, this is, hallelujah, So I was trying to do, some progress, amazing enough, just through holding that, and restraint, and sila. So it works, independent of the person in a way. So that really got me interested in doing much more of it. And so I made that commitment to cultivate and to stay in that particular form and form of practice. Of course, one can get attached to that form of practice, which is what happened. I got very much into doing a particular style that didn't really work outside of that conventional situation with the retreat centre, monastery. So it all falls apart because I haven't actually learned independently to cultivate these things. It's been placed there. And I'm in a situation where actually the placing was no longer available because you were visiting my mother, my family, all those things, just, and really trying, but just very. So then, really to integrate the form and internalize and know internally or independently, subjectively, where the sliding occurs, and to know the sign of the sliding or the fuming or the twittering, something going on. Wait a minute. Know the sign of the person when he or she comes in. When it comes in, lesson to be learned. Something, lesson to be learned here. There are obvious places where this personal thing is pretty obviously unpleasant, problematic. There's other places where it still lingers, feel I've got to do this, I've got to be something, or I've got to do a lot, or I've got to make sure I'm as good as. And it's not on the script. You're as good as you can be. And so it's not that you have to be the one who sits longest or eats least or does the most work or is the most you don't have to. If that's where your interest lies, you can explore that. But no, take the burden, the weight off the personal project. There's a humility about it. It's really important to get a feeling for that emptiness. Because, of course, particularly in Sangha life, people do see us as, venerable and respected, and Ajahn and Lumpur and Mahatera and da-da-da-da-da, get this thing going on. And fine, that's the way people feel, and that's lovely, beautiful. And then you can actually look at, just the sense restraint, virtue, mindfulness. That's your home, that's your temple, not the rest of the stuff. That's the wallpaper. It's not going to stand up on its own. They call you Prakru or Krubar or something. So, with this, cultivations, you see the sign, which can be the sign of attainment, or the sign of being venerated, or the sign of being ignored, or the sign, what that does. You look at the actual meaning. This is called pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or grasping, or not grasping. So you go beyond the sign into what the citta is actually being turned by, right? Grasping it. Whether the sign is of being a useless meditator or a great meditator, just agreeable, disagreeable. Look at, dispel, move the sign to one side. What is the citta doing? Because without this, one can receive praise and get very deluded by it. And that happens. We recognise this in all spiritual religious traditions. They're kind of, the entitlement, and then people start getting egotistical and thing. And probably most of us have the other extreme. We tend to think of ourselves as little or not very good or whatever. That's another form of conceit. It's not, you're as good as you can be now. Look into the meanings, but do look into the meanings. The restraint, purity of conduct, establishing sati, resolution, loving kindness, compassion. Look into the real important things and feed them. Don't get confused into feeding some self, even if it's a negative self. I think this is where, when we look at the Buddha's recommendations on what's called the nutriments, you'll see a list of these. It crops up here and there, but there's a particular list in the Book of the Tens, and he talks about the nutriment for ignorance. It says so you don't find a first cause of avijja. There's not this is no avijja and then avijja. There's a kind of like you can't say it's a single cause, a specific point. It's a kind of atmosphere, like you'd say almost like a mist, that actually condenses around certain things. Just like mist can condense on the window pane and become water, drips of water. So this quality is avijja, is a failing to be in touch. There can be a kind of fundamentally, if you're not an arahant, that's definitely in the area. Not quite being in touch with the implications of selflessness, non-grasping. That's one's permeated by that. Unless you're an arahant, it's there. So it's your job is then to see when it crystallises. Because when it crystallises, then that's where you really get the sense of there's the dukkha, or there's the gripping, or there's the self-view coming up around this. So he says, you can't find a first cause for this kind of general misty condition because we're born with it. But you can see where it begins to crystallize and condense and becomes hindrances. So these are these 5 hindrances: ill will, sense desire, attachment to sensuality, dullness and lethargy, lack of verve, lack of interest, lack of vibrancy, restlessness, worry, flurry, guilt, regret, endless churning over of past issues, restless fluttering of the mind, and then doubt. I don't know if I can do this. Who am I? What am I? What's the point? I can't find anything, any solid ground to stand on. So these, they're not, they're deep things, that, particularly with something like doubt, which is not an intellectual lack of information, it's just a total lack of confidence in being. And it can be so deep for people that they kill themselves. Life's got no meaning to it. Nothing to live for. So whenever we get into that sense of it's all pointless, no confidence, then we're entering into that territory. And no matter how much head learning you cram in to that, which can be a way of trying to compensate for that lack of confidence. If I get all the smarts, do all the right things, I'll feel okay. If I get all this stuff learned, all these lists and words and yada yada, then I'll be fine. If I get this state or another, then I'll be fine. But until one has penetrated the groundlessness and become comfortable with the sense of everything being dependent, depends, nothing's really fixed, final. It's all, conditions always change, some are pleasant, unpleasant, brilliant, disgusting. And you can be in that without getting impacted or gripping it. Then one is free from that. Your confidence is then not established on any condition, but on the sign of release. So this is one who has come to that and fulfilled in that is someone who's considered to be really. They definitely have what they call entered the stream. They've got some sense, whether they can verbalise it or not, of a quality, ineffable, a release quality, an unbinding quality, where things don't get activated. The things that did activate don't. There's no flustering or flurrying, it's just in that confidence. Not in self, but it's like this, isn't it? There's no sort of song and dance about it. So if you're saying, well, I'm a stream enterer, well, clearly you're not. It's just conditions are like this. So it isn't really a person at all. It's a kind of a quality or a modality of the citta when it comes out to some degree, sometimes momentarily, or being grabbed by conditions. So we need, in a way, to be tested by conditions to see what you're going to hook onto. We're saying this release from this, these 5 hindrances, or the non-release from this is the big feeder of this avidya, which mounts. One way of expressing it is the self-view. There's something as false boundaries are created, separation. I am this. or I'm not this. It's the other way of expressing it. Mm. So you say, well, how does this? This is fed by the lack of sati sampajano. Which is fed by lack of restraint. Somewhere there's conduct in there, I'm not quite sure, but then the lack of sati sampajano is fed by lack of careful attention. Lack of careful attention is fed by lack of faith. Absence of faith is fed by not hearing true Dhamma. Not hearing true Dhamma is fed by not associating with wise people, people of integrity. They feed each other, and this kind of torrent moves towards, that wells up from a situational experience. Good people hearing Dhamma. So first one's just receiving, and then beginning to, pick up the message, restrain, purify conduct. Use sati sampajano. Can't be established until there's some purity of conduct. Purity of conduct leads to sati sampajano, leads to, that way. So it starts off as just absorbing the goodness. And then learning the messages from that are the sense consciousness will you need to restrain it. Restrain the indriya, the outgoing energies. Just restrain it, so you're getting some differentiation between the experience that you're just having of feeling disturbed or agitated to the blowing it out into intentions, speech, body action, even holding on in your mind to certain obsessive thoughts. Checking that, and at least restraining, and then sampajana begin to investigate these qualities that arise. The feeding. And it says in the realization experience is it's those factors in reverse, except that we have sati sampajano is kind of basic all-round quality. It gives rise to good conduct, mental good conduct, pure intentions, clear intentions. And this establishes the four establishments of mindfulness. So it's become something that's more formalized. From something that's kind of ongoing, we try to, sustain in our lives as a general mode, and then the kind of intensification that is establishing these four reference points. So they just hold you on that frame. And it gives you a chance to look into areas that were previously not apparent, previously not seen. What one, someone using this example of sort of, having conventional restraint or retreat. One can feel, lack of stimulation, dullness, physical discomfort, even ideological discomfort. Why should we have to do this? Oh, good. You pulled something out of something deeply, you pulled it out of the mix. Look at that, Okay, it's not what you like, fair enough. But so, and can that, be explored so it doesn't turn into the hindrance? So it's only for the uprooting of the hindrances, this kind of in-depth process is needed so the enlightenment factors arise. And these include qualities such as rapture, certain brightness, ease, and samadhi, composure, deep collectedness, equanimity. So there is a payoff when you've cleaned out the system. And what's been cleaned out to an increasing degree are these atmospheres of self, the programs and the inclinations that do that. So then as we learn a few things about where my weak spots and blind spots or touchy areas are, and I've begun to review that. That was the sign. What was the meaning? The sign was, uncomfortable, unpleasant. What was the meaning? The meaning was, I'm not good enough. Look at that. Who is that? Go into that. Kindly. Spaciously. What do you expect? What are we closing down on? When we say we're not good enough, we don't want to witness or bear with. Certain conditions are being, as a reflex, being grasped. Or lack of stamina, or the lack of stamina in this body, or the lack of energy in this citta is being grasped. How do you think it should be? Once you begin to penetrate it and investigate it, Dhamma Vijaya, it's just like this now. There shouldn't be another way. It's like this. So this second enlightenment factor of Dhamma Vijaya opens up, because now we've got something very meaningful to penetrate, which sometimes one doesn't see till something's been kind of presented. And in the Dhamma Vijaya, beyond the sign, which then becomes a person, such as I'm not a good meditator, or I can't bear this. Let's go into that. I feel a sense of distress, pressure. I shouldn't be feeling something, or I'm supposed to be something, or they want me to be something, or I can't. Let's have a look into that. Maybe it's just agitation and uncertainty and mingling and being held. You're as good as you can be right now. And it changes. You keep feeding on the right thing, these conditions change for the better. And the released also becomes discerned. So, my inadequacies remain inadequacies. Something, but one is released from the fear and the guilt and the shame about them. And we look at what we can be, realise the most important thing to get adequate around is purity of speech, purity of conduct, purity of intention. The rest of it, you don't know where it's going to go. So 3 kinds of skillful conduct, they can be cultivated, but whether we're going to feel happy or not immediately, maybe not so. Maybe that will come later. Maybe one always will be uncomfortable or low energy. Maybe it will be like that, but there will be a release from it. So either conditions move to the skillful, or conditions move to release, or both. And the release is always going to be from that which was felt personally, perhaps deeply personally, so deep that we didn't even realise it was there, is brought out. And the phantom is released. These are the thoughts, reflections on some of this formal, informal practices, penetration, and I hope this is of some use, because the theme is if we do this workshop, then certain things can have been abandoned, certain things can be seen that we need to work on personally, and we could perhaps return to normal set of duties in a clearer and more one-pointed way, for our welfare and for the welfare of the Sangha, and welfare of the Dhamma, and the welfare of the Sasana. In the future we pass on that process of purification through our struggles and breakthroughs and patience. We pass that on. And that's nothing better to do than that, really. So recognising I've taken up a good amount of your time in my talks, and they're probably not always exactly what you wanted, or a slip of the tongue, slightly offensive references, the general thing that happens. So, whatever, I always say, whatever's been useful, great. Whatever you haven't found useful, shelve it, whatever. Obviously, I've been in the position of being given some authority by this, so I like to acknowledge that, and also say, that when the teacher gets off the seat, he's no longer the teacher. So, enough. So enough for me for now for this retreat session, and hope we can continue to practice with right endeavour.
Dhamayang Dhamma Varakataya Sadhu Karang Dhamma Se